West Hill United is a progressive spiritual community where how you live is more important than what you believe. West Hill United is a people, a place, an idea. We are a community living out of a progressive faith, striving to make a positive difference in our own lives, the lives of others, and the world. Join us Sundays at 10:30 a.m. or connect with us at any time.
We have two readings this morning. The first is by Bell Hooks, who was an American author and social activist who was a distinguished professor in residence at Barrera College in Kentucky. She is best known for her writings on race, feminism, and class. The quote we will hear today talks about the power of mutuality. In fact, she's saying that mutuality might be a way to cross boundaries and even break down inequitable structures. From Belonging, A Culture of Place by Bell Hooks. With reciprocity, all things do not need to be equal in order for acceptance and mutuality to thrive. If equality is evoked as the only standard by which it is deemed acceptable for people to meet across boundaries and create community, then there is little hope. Fortunately, mutuality is a more constructive and positive foundation for the building of ties that allow for differences in status, position, power, and privilege, whether determined by race, class, sexuality, religion, or nationality. Offered as wisdom for the journey. May we walk in its light. Our second reading is a poem by Nodashara Cabanas called We Live for Others. It is an homage to the power of mutuality. We all need each other, but this need is not a sign of weakness. Instead, it is the nature of life. In fact, it might even be a gift. We Live for Others by Nodashara Cabanas. Needing and being needed are reasons for us to live. We live to fill the needs of others, and others live to fill our needs. It is for that sole purpose that we live. Being needed gives us a sense of purpose. When we find ourselves to be of no use to others, we feel worthless, isolated from the rest. Even trees live to fill our needs. Life moves and flows through a relationship of reciprocity and mutuality. We give and we receive. Offered as wisdom for the journey. May we walk in its light.
I'm just going to vamp for a minute while I lost my perspective again. I pressed the wrong button and it just went away, that darn thing. Here we go. It exists. So this is the season of giving, and it's the tradition in our culture to give gifts to loved ones, to celebrate our lives, and the fact that we are alive, and we have a feast, and we share presents. And we've heard that old saying, it's better to give than to receive, and I believe there's some truth in there. And we express our love by giving gifts to those we love, and it can bring such joy in our lives. And anyone who has spent Christmas with a child knows the joy of this holiday. And that joy is infectious. But it's more than just infectious, it's important. Joy is important in our lives, and we must attend to it. But I better be careful how I speak, because even just a few moments ago, I said our gift giving is an expression of our love. And in our consumer culture, that could be interpreted as connecting the value of the gift to the measure of our love, and we don't want to do that. A more expensive gift would mean that you loved somebody more. And it's easy to say you don't have to look at that way, and that's true, but that's also an important lesson. if we're to really maximize the joy in the world. And I've spoken before about the challenge of truly giving a gift. So often when you give a gift, their first thought that the recipient has is to assess the value of the gift so they can determine what gift they have to give in return. It matches the value. It's not too much, not too little, but just right. And the challenge with that is some ways we are giving an obligation instead of a kernel of joy. And this action or this reality or these factors are not only true for gift giving, there's other manifestations. There's a lady at one church that I served who would, one day she told me, "Oh, you look nice." And so I thanked her. And she said, "Well, you shouldn't just thank me, you should return the compliment and say that I look nice." And I thought, so your compliment wasn't complimentary. It wasn't free. There was a cost attached to it. And another example of this, if this action or this reality is hospitality. A few weeks ago, I spoke about radical hospitality, and this bright young woman a week later came up to me and said, "Am I supposed to just invite everyone to come live in my house?" And of course, you can't do that. That's not really possible, even though hospitality might call us to do that. But it just doesn't work that way. But we still must offer this radical hospitality, even when it's impossible. And it can be a challenge. We're going to look at how we might do some of these things. But to return to the impossibility of gift giving, part of the solution is to be very intentional about your gift giving. In the previous example, making sure that the value of the gift is not related to your love of the other person. It can be as simple as that. But it's so important that we are intentional about these things if we are going to center joy in the world. And so this challenge of gift giving sometimes gets mitigated, and people try to mitigate it by, in families or in office spaces, by having a secret Santa. And with a secret Santa, everyone picks a name out of a hat and buys a gift for just that one person. They do that so that everyone doesn't have to buy a gift for everyone, which makes sense. You just have to buy the one gift. And sometimes, that's good because some people can't afford to buy gifts for everybody and it gets complicated. So I understand why these things happen. It makes it simpler. And I'm not really criticizing the practice, but it does show how we put structures and limits and rules around gift giving. It's not just a real gift that's given. There's something that has to be a part of something else. And this can take something out of the gift giving. It can reduce the power of the gift and the power of giving. And it can in some way even limit the joys of the gift giving. And we want to maximize the joy, and we want to maximize the power of the gift in our world. And one way that we might do that to really engage the power of gift giving is through mutuality. Don't forget that whenever a gift is given, there's always two people involved. There's the giver and the receiver. And both play a role in this moment, in the event of the gift. So when we give a gift, there's an inherent mutuality. We are making a connection. We are engaging another person in this web of life. We are honoring the inherent entanglement of the web of life every time we give the gift. And if we can be intentional about that event when we give a gift, that might actually deepen the entanglement, deepen the connection. And that is a cause for celebration and joy. So let's take another look at how this mutuality might work. I remember in my first church that I served in Stratford, I was visiting an elderly lady who had cancer. And she was one of those pillar of the church ladies, and she really helped make the church run. But she was a benevolent church lady. She was one of the good ones. She would always offer a helping hand to anyone in need. But when she got cancer, she withdrew from the church. She said she didn't want to ask for help. She didn't want to be the person in need of receiving help. I suggested perhaps she might embrace the role of being the one in need, that in order for people to help others, there must be people in need of help. And that's her role now. In the end, she wasn't buying what I was selling, but far be it from me to tell someone how to live out their days. or how to feel about something. So I don't judge her in any way. But you can see the inherent mutuality in community. Every time we offer a helping hand to someone, there are two people involved. And both the giver and the receiver are vital players in this event. Another story of mutuality is of Joe, who I met on my internship. Joe was a part-time handyman who would do small jobs for the church. Now, the small jobs were not really necessary. They were helpful, but not really necessary. And part of the reason we actually offered him these small jobs was so that we could pay him, because he could use the money. He was poor and disabled. And he really did help. He could help out for a few hours, and we'd pay him to do that. And occasionally the minister at the church would buy him a coffee. And then Joe would also reciprocate. He'd buy the minister a coffee sometimes. And the minister always felt really uncomfortable because he could afford to buy the coffee, and in reality, Joe probably couldn't. But Joe was honoring the inherent entanglement of the web of life. He was nurturing the mutuality in the web of life. And the mutuality of sharing the coffee, something was added to the world. And to Joe, that was worth more than just $2 for a cup of coffee. And that might have been what Bell Hooks was getting at in the quote we heard a few moments ago, when she said, with reciprocity, all things do not need to be equal in order for acceptance and mutuality to thrive. And if equality is evoked as the only standard by which it is deemed acceptable to meet people across boundaries and create community, then there's little hope. But Joe and the minister didn't have to be equal for the mutuality to thrive. Through buying coffee for another, they honored the mutuality of the web of life across their class boundaries. Because again, as Hook says, fortunately, mutuality is more constructive and positive foundation for the building of ties that allow for differences in status, position, power, and privilege, whether determined by race, class, sexuality, religion, or nationality. What Bell Hooks was saying is that mutuality can be transformative. There's a transformation baked into mutuality. In fact, the word mutuality has the same words as the word mutate. It comes from the Latin mutuus, which means to change. There's a transformative power in mutuality. We can affect change for mutuality, which doesn't require equality. Mutuality can help us break down barriers and be a pathway to better relationship. Perhaps it can even open us to joy. So when you give your gifts this year, remember to give them with joy and mutuality. Remember, the value of the gift is in the giving of the gift. The value is actually in the event of the gift. And when you give the gift, you open a pathway to joy, the joy of relationship, the joy of mutuality, because it's better to give than to receive. But don't forget about the receiving of the gift. You have a role to play there as well. You have a responsibility in receiving a gift, to receive it with love and open-heartedness and acceptance. It's acceptance. So the gift is not judged, it's accepted with joy and mutual love. So in this season of gift giving, remember to give, but also receive with joy, because life moves and flows through a relationship of reciprocity and mutuality. And let's focus on that joy of mutual love. And let's celebrate the season with the joy of a child. Peace.
Become a sustaining champion of West Hill United's work by committing to an automatic monthly donation. Learn more or donate now through Canada Helps.